to go. Let's get started on the Webb Show. Webby pumpkin in control, bringing stories to the whole. Hey, 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 it's fun and bright. Join us now, let's take flight. The Webb Show is on tonight. Come along, it's pure delight.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Webb Show. I am so excited to be feeling better, even though I am still a little bit phlegmy. Guys, if you don't know, if you missed last week's episode, it was very short. It would have been easy to miss. I and my wife, both, we got some variation of the flu that's going on right now that is probably the worst version of the flu I've ever had in my entire life. Like, I kid you not, it was kind of excruciatingly bad. I tried my best to push through. We didn't go live with a live episode of the Webb Show on Monday because of it, because I felt myself beginning to get sick and kind of tanking a little bit. And little did I know that it was only going to get worse, and it got significantly worse. I pressed through on Tuesday because we launched a brand new podcast called Tangled Christianity with Pete, Tony, and myself. And I know that I'm super dead, super dead in that podcast. That live episode is already aired, but the VOD of it will be available tomorrow, which is the 11th, February 11th. I was pretty bad that night. Wednesday, I was really bad. I was like lightheaded, incredibly clammy, super duper sick, just so super sick on Wednesday. Thursday was a little bit better, but I was in this boot cycle of fever where I would get a fever and then I would break it and power through and it would be okay, and the fever would come back and I was super drained. Anyway, long story short, it's now been a week, an actual physical week, and I still have a cough. It's a pretty dry cough. Hopefully you guys won't hear any of it tonight, but it's still there. And I don't have all the energy that I usually would have, but I am 100 times better, easily 100 times better than I was. And so I am grateful for that. Guys, we have a couple things to talk about tonight on the agenda. The biggest things to talk about, we actually have, we're going to talk about the big three. And you know, when I say the big three, what I mean is Nintendo, PlayStation, and Xbox. We're gonna talk about all three of the big three console manufacturers today. PC, you guys, you get to just chill. You get to just hang back and enjoy the show. We're kicking things off with some new patents. Specifically for Nintendo around the Switch 2, the Joy-Con, the way that it's going to connect, maybe some ideas that potentially confirm some rumors that we were already speculating about the Switch 2 Joy-Cons. So that's what we're going to talk about first. And then over the weekend, the PlayStation Network went down. It went down last Friday. I'm a little late to this news, but I had to wait till the Webb Show came back on. And I was also dying of a cold, so I guess forgive me. But no, it went down on Friday, right around the time, if you're on like the East or the West Coast, like around the time that you would be getting home from work. So many people were upset to find that they turned on their PlayStation and they had all kinds of issues because of PlayStation Network going down, and it stayed down for quite some time. So there wasn't a whole lot to do other than connect with your family, I guess, before the Super Bowl. So that was interesting. And then a little bit of an interesting article came out around Xbox, specifically how many consoles it looks like they've sold in 2024. And I'm just going to go ahead and spoil it right out of the top. Not a lot. It's really not a lot of consoles, and I've got some opinions about it, to be completely honest, because I just don't know that I know what the heck Xbox is doing with their model and their system right now of basically putting everything everywhere. It's kind of crazy. Also, we'll be periodically checking out chat. I see AFK to chat already right now in the live chat. If you guys didn't know, this is a live podcast that happens every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, here on twitch.tv/WebbyPumpkin. So if you're an audio listener and you'd like to check out a live episode, that's where you can find it. Would love to have you here sometime. And probably the best way to chat and comment and get featured in the show. So glad you guys are here. We got Crimsonite here as well, popping in to say hello, Webby World. So glad that you're here, Crimsonite14. Appreciate you. AFK to Chat is another podcaster, that's CC, that I had the privilege of being on an episode of a couple weeks back. It's by the same name, AFK to Chat. Check him out anywhere you enjoy your podcast journeys, where you're listening to this one right now, or YouTube, wherever. Just go check out that episode. Start with my episode. Leave a comment and say, wow, that Webby Pumpkin guy, he sure is swell. You should have him back, AFK. That's the very first thing that you have to do. But check him out, AFK to Chat, all one word. That's AFK, the number 2, chat, wherever you guys like to listen to your podcast. Go check him out. All right, let's go ahead and get started with the Nintendo. What is Nintendo doing? Nintendo is doing what Nintendo does, specifically being gimmicky, and I guess you could consider it innovative. I mean, it's kind of innovative, I guess. We're going to jump into that right now. Here's an article from The Verge. We had some new patents come out around the Joy-Con being held horizontally with the SR and SL buttons facing downward. That is opposite of what we're used to with the current model Switch, where those buttons are upwards and we can, you use them like a regular controller, just mini, turned sideways. This one's a little bit different. Another image, so these are the patents here. We're going to look at those if you're watching the actual video. You can watch the video on YouTube, Twitch, and Spotify, maybe some other places, but if you're audio listening, I'm going to try to be really descriptive as well. But we have patent figures that are drawn here. Another image shows the left Joy-Con being used upright while the right Joy-Con is used in this mouse mode. Imagine WASD, but with your Switch controller in a machine translation of the patent. All right, so let's look at these patents. First and foremost, we see the Switch Joy-Con held face down on its side as if it's a mouse. There's actually a couple images here. Here's the top-down image. There are a lot of references to the buttons. You have just all numbers, 130, 33, 32, 110, just written all over it. We don't really necessarily know what those are going to do or what they mean, but we can infer. It looks like this is the right Joy-Con we're looking at here. So what would be ZR on the right Joy-Con is going to curve around a little bit more than what we see on the current Joy-Con. I think it's reminiscent of what we see with the controllers for the Lenovo Legion Go. Not nearly as chunky and as bulky, but with a little bit of a wraparound so that it would be possible to rest your hand directly on the Joy-Con with it on its side, thumb on the analog stick, and then your index finger on what would be the R button and your middle finger on what would be ZR, so that you have a right and left click. I'm not really sure what the analog stick would be. Maybe that is some type of, scroll wheel, something like that. I don't know. There's plenty of buttons on the Joy-Con, so there's no telling really. Like, this might even be up to the interpretation of what game developers are going to use this feature for. Like, you know how Nintendo was super gimmicky. I've already alluded to this in previous conversations that I've had with people around the Joy-Con. It's possible that we see something kind of like Nintendo Labo, and that there's a game that has you do maybe crazy fun stuff that's like very party game. And maybe one of the things that you do in this game is you have to grate some cheese. And so how do you do that? Well, you take the Joy-Con out, you flap that bad boy onto the table, and you slide back and forth, and you pretend that you're grating the cheese or slicing the vegetables or whatnot. But it looks like it could actually be a lot more than that. Maybe some legitimate, mouse-like configuration. But we do see in figure 27, we see a configuration where everything that I described earlier for the right hand with the right Joy-Con, the left is mimicking. So you have your left thumb on the left Joy-Con's thumbstick, and then index and middle finger on L and ZL respectively. I don't know how that would maybe work, but it looks like there's also some access to button 42, which would be up on the D-pad on the left side. I don't know what kind of game would call for this two mouse type of setup. but they do have a patent for it. And then the one that's drawing the most attention is Figure 28, which is a patent drawing. It has the right Joy-Con described as I described it earlier, on its side, right thumb on the analog stick, index and middle finger on the bumper and trigger. Left hand is holding the Joy-Con, the left Joy-Con, the way you would normally hold a Joy-Con, with in like a controller mode. And this is interesting because it's possible that this is alluding to some type of FPS shooter configuration where your left hand uses the movement stick and aim. Probably not even aim. I'm not really sure. Maybe you jump with the ZL. I'm not sure how they would configure it, but your left hand would take the place of your left hand on the keyboard when you're playing keyboard and mouse, and so that your WAS and D are on the stick. Maybe, instead of your thumb on spacebar to jump, maybe that's, the trigger. Maybe you crouch or whatever you do with the bumper and use whatever buttons are on the left Joy-Con to control your movement. All while your right hand, this is obviously going to be in a docked form, all while your right hand is using the right Joy-Con in a mouse configuration. If it's got a reasonable enough sensor, and if it's comfortable enough to do so, this could be a really interesting configuration. The first game that I think of that I would want to try this in is something like Fortnite, where the Switch is notoriously the worst way to play it. Like, I actually think that I would rather play Fortnite on a mobile phone than on the Switch because the frame rates are so low and the analog sticks are just so small and stubby. Any shooter on the Switch actually is a little difficult for me because the analog sticks, man. But I made myself learn to play keyboard and mouse a year before last, 2 years ago, 2023, whenever that was. And I'm still not very great at it, but boy, did it completely change the way that I experience and enjoy first-person shooters. And I think it'd be kind of neat. I think it'd be really kind of neat to see that feature in the Nintendo Switch. Most especially if we see something happen with the actual Switch body itself. Because if you guys don't remember, the Switch 2 has two USB-C ports, one in the top, one in the bottom. So it would be possible to dock the USB, like the bottom USB-C, into what effectively is like a little portable keyboard. Think like laptop style. And then, your Joy-Cons click onto the side. And so I can't imagine doing any work or anything like that on a Nintendo Switch. But maybe another option is to still have a WASD type configuration on a built-in keyboard, or just offer regular keyboard support. That would be great, Nintendo. What a concept there. And that could be really cool. And then, your mouse is just connected right there on the side. Bada bing, bada boom, you're good to go. There are more patents as well that were just two more figures here that are interesting. This appears to be for some type of charging stand or charging dock for the Nintendo Switch 2 Joy-Cons. I'm assuming we're calling them Joy-Cons. They may have a different name, and that would make sense to call them something other than Joy-Con. We don't know that, of course, yet. Maybe we'll figure that out in April. But here we have it's just a puck that the Joy-Con slot into. What's interesting here that I note is that it's alternating. So for example, on the one side of the puck, the left Joy-Con will go in one direction, and then the right Joy-Con would actually go in opposite of that, so that left and right bumpers are opposite of each other. I guess that is to maximize room, because that is where the bulk of the controller would be, is around those triggers. Figure 46 shows that puck that I'm talking about without the Joy-Cons in it, and it literally is just a rectangle. Probably plastic, just a plastic rectangle that has slots and magnets inside of it so that you can just snap the Joy-Cons right into it. And then figure 719 is a hole that's at the bottom. More than likely, it's just a spot to plug a USB-C port in. Nothing too crazy. We also have the analog, the strap, and the way that that's going to tie. It looks like it is pretty much identical to what we see with the current Joy-Con. It does have some kind of puck, it looks like, at the back of the strap, but that's that's not that different from what we saw with like a Nintendo Wii, a Wiimote. So there probably nothing too crazy there. Patents don't always translate directly into actual shipped products. So it's possible that these designs are just designs that Nintendo's exploring and that they'll never actually pursue, that will never see the light of day. And we truly won't see the light of day because since they're patented, you won't see a third party do something, at least, do something similar, but not something identical. But given the rumors around this tech, Nintendo's on hints, and Nintendo's on hints in the same direction, there's a good chance that they'll offer an early look at how some of the Switch 2's new features might work. And I suspect that we will see that in April, whenever the Switch 2 Direct finally airs, which does kind of feel like it's still kind of far off, but I also recognize that it's not that far off. So there's only a little bit of time left to wait before we get to have a look at the Switch 2. All right, moving on past the Switch news. I want to know what you guys think in the comments and in the chat. If you have any thoughts about the Switch 2 and this Joy-Con being like a mouse, whatever you think about the way that the patent looks, I'd like to hear your thoughts. So leave that in the comments at the end of the video on YouTube or in the comment section wherever you enjoy listening to your podcast. I want to connect with you guys. Let me know, and let me know if you're picking a Switch 2 up. If you've already made up your mind, there's a lot of stuff. I want to know about just the community as a whole when it comes to this new console, and if it's going to be worth the upgrade, and more than likely it will. But all right, let's move on to the dark days of PlayStation. What do I mean by that? I mean Sony's PlayStation Network was down from Friday to Saturday evening, surpassing 24 hours. It's one of the decade's longest unscheduled outages of a major video game network, and the outage was wide-reaching, including PSN's account management, social features, the PlayStation Store, and more. Yet, as the service returned online, information on the cause, let alone the fix, remained vague. Late Saturday night, a Sony Interactive Entertainment spokesperson responded to Polygon's request. This is a Polygon article. Polygon's request for comment with the following statement. Network services are fully recovered from an operational issue. We apologize for the inconvenience and thank the community for their patience. All PlayStation Plus members will automatically receive an additional 5 days of service. The statement builds upon the company's slight, blunt initial update from Friday. Shortly after the outage began, the official Ask PlayStation X account messaged, "We are aware some users might currently be experiencing issues with PSN," and then there was the tweet and everything there. Like they said, PlayStation Network is back up. This is really, to me, it's not that big of news, to be honest. It's just, an online service went down. We've seen this junk happen with Xbox plenty. We've seen this happen during the PlayStation 3 era with Sony before. Back then, I think it was down for like 20-something days, though, like almost an entire month, if memory serves correctly. This was before I owned I wasn't in the PlayStation Network at that time. I had a PS2, and I never got a PS3, so I kind of missed out on that. So all I knew about it at the time was just kind of what my friends were dealing with or what I was hearing about. But I think that PSN was down for basically an entire month. And what Sony did after that is they had a selection of games that they let all of their subscribers pick from. And I think you get to pick 2. And there was PSP games as well. So PS3 and PSP games, because the PlayStation Portable was also affected by that outage. This one's not nearly that extreme. This one, a little over 24 hours. So you lost a day or a little over a day of your service, and PlayStation's making up for it by giving you 5 back. A lot of people, though, are feeling like that's not enough. What do you want from them? Then that doesn't make sense for them to give a game for this. Maybe some information would be nice, because 5 days I think is fine. You're really, if you think about it, you lost a day, you gained 5, so you gained 4 extra days. 400 times benefit is a pretty good benefit. The thing is, we don't know why this went down, and that doesn't do much to garner confidence when people kind of need to be able to access PlayStation Network. Why do they need to? Let me tell you, and that's actually the core of why I want to have this conversation about Sony and about the PlayStation today. Here's some of the stuff that didn't work for most users while the PlayStation Network was down. Online multiplayer. Obviously, that makes plenty of sense. You've got to be able to connect to the servers to say who you are, to be able to connect to other people and play online. I don't know if this extended to things like Fortnite or other games that host their own multiplayer servers, but definitely games like the like of something like Helldivers or other like Sony exclusive online multiplayer titles. Those were down. Access to purchased games. This is on. So I didn't have this happen. My wife actually has been playing Power Washing Simulator on my PS5 pretty much all weekend. She didn't play on Sunday. Ironically, that was the day that PSN was back up. But she didn't have any issues. And the reason she didn't have any issues playing on my particular system with that PlayStation Plus title is because I have my PlayStation 5 set as my primary console. If you guys didn't know that you can do that, I heavily recommend that you do that as soon as you get a chance to in the settings, because you get a couple perks and a couple features, one of which being the ability to access your games when you're offline. There were a couple people who posted on Twitter who had upgraded recently to a PS5 Pro or to a PS5 Slim that actually could not access digital purchases of their games because their PS5 Pro was not their primary console. Their other PS5 was still the primary console. And they may or may not still own that PS5, or much less, likely is, they've gotten rid of it. Much more likely they've got it boxed up in storage or something, like they're not actively using it anymore. And they've never set the PS5 as their primary console. Well, that's no big deal. Just go into the settings and set the PS5 or Pro as your primary console, right? Well, you can't while the PlayStation Network is down. And so if you are in that situation and you're trying to play a game that you had either purchased DLC or just purchased outright digitally, then you were just up a creek without a paddle until the servers came back online, and you could then prove that you had, access to that license, and then have an opportunity to bring that console onto the PlayStation. Bring that PlayStation onto the primary console list for your account. If you had a PS5 Slim or PS5 Pro, and you were like, well, bump this, I'll just pick up a disk drive so that I could play games physically. Well, that didn't work either. Why did it not work either? Because you can't link a disk drive to a modern PS5 without registering it to through your PlayStation Network account, which is absolutely bonkers. Physical hardware that's right there on the system plugged in has to be registered to the system, and the only way to do that is through your PlayStation Network account. That means that if you needed to boot an actual physical disc that you had there in your hand that you otherwise wouldn't need to have a PlayStation Network account, connected for, you were up creek without a paddle because the disk drive just wouldn't connect. Now, people who had previously already connected their disk drives, I don't believe that they had any issues, provided, that it was their primary console. And so, what was the other one? Oh, yeah, that one was bonkers. This one, and this next thing that was messing up also kind of blew my mind, and that's the PlayStation Portal. And you're probably thinking, well, duh, Webby, that makes complete sense because the PlayStation Portal can only stream games. Yes, it can, and now it can stream games from the cloud. But initially, and now it was always set up to begin with, the thing would stream games directly from your PS5. You shouldn't necessarily need to be connected to the servers. You do need an account, but to the servers to stream video over your own personal network to this device, local connection. But for whatever reason, to connect the PS Portal, you do. You have to sign in with PlayStation Network account to gain access to your PS5. That's there on your local network. And if you don't, It will just spin and load and nothing will happen. That may also be the case about just regular PlayStation Remote Play, though I didn't know about people having an issue with PlayStation Portal until after the network had come back online. So I currently don't have a way of testing that. It's reasonable to me though that if you're using the proper PlayStation Network Remote Play app, that you probably were not able to stream even locally through your computer or your phone or another normal means outside of the portal either. So why is this important? This is important to talk about, or at least to think about, because we are in an ever-growing normality headed towards digital games and not physical. As a matter of fact, to the point that one of the two versions of each console that came out this generation didn't have a disk drive or a means for supporting physical media at all. The Xbox Series S and the PlayStation 5 Digital. The only one of those that have really had a substantial refresh, mid-generation refresh, is the PlayStation. And we're going to talk about why I think some of that might be also in a minute. When little nod to when we talk about Xbox. But when the PlayStation 5 Slim and then later the PlayStation 5 Pro were announced and released, they also by factory or by default, that's the word I'm looking for. They by default do not include a disk drive. Now, kudos to Sony for allowing you to add a disk drive, though that's problematic considering that you have to be connected to the internet to use your disk drive to get it set up. That's kind of bonkers, because part of the reason you might maybe want to buy that disk drive is maybe you live in a place that doesn't have reliable internet or no internet at all. Maybe you're a farm guy, farm girl, and that's the only way to make it work. Of course, you need internet anyway, because even if you are buying the disc, most of the time that's just a launcher. We're at a point where we've kind of outgrown that physical medium, just because the games, at least AAA games, they're not able to fit, for the most part. They're not usually able to fit on the Blu-ray discs that we're purchasing anyway. So you get a portion of the game, or you get, in the case of like God of War Ragnarok, you get the launcher for the game that just helps in aiding the installation onto the actual SSD of the console, and then it serves as a license key or a checkpoint to make sure moving forward that you have the ability to play that game. So this may be a non-issue just for the sake of the fact that things won't fit, and we have to kind of change up the model or the pattern anyway. I don't know. It's just worth bringing attention to, though, because in moments where the PlayStation Network goes down, this is a growing pain that may become more and more common, more popular as we move towards consoles and generations that are reliant on digital only, that are reliant on not owning the game, but owning a license to the game, which is kind of the norm as we see it with pretty much everything except GOG right now, or retro consoles. So I don't know. I do want to know what you guys think, though. If you've got any thoughts while you're here live, throw them in the comment section or in the chat, and we'll read those off and chat about it. If you're listening back later, throw it in the comments. I'd read every comment and respond to almost every comment. Sometimes I just heart them, but usually if I just completely agree with you, I respond pretty well to every comment. So I'd like to hear your thoughts and get you involved in the conversation and have a conversation with you. I just think it's something to be aware of, to be concerned about if you're spending that kind of money on your games. Even if you're okay with the idea of it being a license and not actually owning the game, you should still have access to it, right? And anytime that there is an outage, like what happened with PSN or what we've seen with Xbox before, you are going to potentially lose access, maybe even to the physical stuff, because of the way that they have the disk drive. I don't know. Maybe even to being able to use the PlayStation to its full extent on your home network through casting. You're definitely going to be up creek without a paddle when it comes to online multiplayer, but I don't think anybody is surprised by that one. It's the other things that are kind of surprising. So, I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. Last thing up, while I'm waiting for potential chats and comments to come in, and I'll respond to those at the end of the episode. Last thing up out of the big three, the big trifecta, is Xbox. Specifically, an article that came up by Tech for Gamers that I think was really, really interesting, and I have it actually have it highlighted right here on the screen. We're going to read it together. The last quarterly earning, like I said, this is by Tech for Gamers. The last quarterly earning report by Take-Two reveals that over 94 million current-gen consoles were sold worldwide as of November 2024. It is a notable difference from 2023's 77 million based on that figure provided by Take-Two last year. Out of these 94 million, Xbox is said to have only sold about 29 million consoles. That's holistically. The analysis from last year's report revealed that Xbox had sold 27 million consoles, indicating that in 2024, there was only a 2 million console increase. The official PlayStation 5 sales grew to 65.5 million by the end of September 2024, likely standing even higher toward the end of 2024. Sony likely sold 66 million or more consoles by November, but that would lead to an even fewer Xbox Series S and X unit and Take-Two's 94 million figure. Ultimately, with 65.5 million or more consoles of 94 million being sold by Sony, Microsoft sold no more than 28.5 million Xbox Series S and X units in total. Even when rounding off and accounting for any additional sales throughout 2024, this figure likely topped out at 29 million. Based on these estimations, the Xbox Series X and S sales went up by 2 million units in 2024. Another report earlier this year suggests that the company recorded its worst yearly console sale numbers ever in 2024. Guys, if that's true, the Xbox only sold, these are probably Xbox Series S's, honestly, as well, because that is by far the much more common box to be purchased. If that is true, 2 million. That's really bad. Now, I know 2 million is a big number. Like, you hear 2 million, and you compare that to any, normal day-to-day life type thing, like 2 million eggs is a lot of eggs. 2 million cars is a lot of cars, Like, I'd like to have 2 million cars, that kind of thing. I'd like to have $2 million, that's a lot of dollars. But in the grand scheme of console sales worldwide, 2 million is incredibly low. That is such a small number, to the point that I'm actually going to check this right now, but I think the Steam Deck may have... Okay. Valve has sold multiple millions of Steam Decks in 2022. The Steam Decks... So in 2022 alone, the Steam Deck sold 1.62 million units. By the end of 2023, it had sold over 3 million units. So, the Steam Deck, which is popular... But it's popular in niche markets because you got to be honest. The Steam Deck is kind of a niche product. It's something that is kind of a luxury item. It is a thing, like most people, if they're needing to buy a computer, they're not buying a Steam Deck for their computer. They're buying a computer. The Steam Deck is an additional luxury thing that you can tag on. The Xbox is kind of in a different, or traditionally, the Xbox would be in kind of a different category, where it would be someone's primary gaming system. However you swing it. There was a time, like if you look back to the Xbox 360 days, where there were the fanboys. You kind of had to pick an ecosystem, and was it the PS2 and PS3? Was it the Xbox 360? Was it the Wii? A lot of people had a Wii and one of the other two, but you normally didn't get an Xbox and a PlayStation unless you were, an enthusiast, like a lot of us are. But if you just were a family, buying a console for your kiddos, or you could really only swing one console, which is honestly the majority of people, probably. They just, they don't need more than one console, so they pick one or the other and they buy in there. That was much, much, much more common. Let's give it a comparison, actually. Let's see how many Xbox 360s were sold. To put it in perspective, the Xbox, as of, let's see, Xbox 360 sold 85.7 million units worldwide. That means we're looking at a quarter of as many Xbox Series have been sold as the Xbox 360, which is just 2 generations back. So we're literally looking at the most powerful console. Remember, because it was marketed as the more powerful one, and it is marginally. It's technically more powerful than the PS5. It's not more powerful than the PS5 Pro. But when these things came out at the beginning, it was the more powerful console. And it has sold a quarter as well as the Xbox 360, and not even anywhere close to as well as the PlayStation 5. The PlayStation 5 had really rocky start because it just genuinely just kind of couldn't get off the ground because of, sourcing issues in Silicon Valley. And I mean, I get it, but COVID made everything a lot harder. But Xbox is just not turning numbers. 2 million in an entire calendar year is wild. But that kind of lines up with what we're seeing Phil Spencer and Microsoft's gaming division push towards with their everything is an Xbox campaign. Here is an article from WindowsCentral.com that has a little section I'd like to read here that I thought was really compelling and interesting. Before we read that, though, we got P. Tony and we got Pre-Pony in the chat. Thank you guys so much for being here for the live episode of The Webb Show. Glad that you're here. P. Tony says, wait, there's an Xbox console? Everything's an Xbox, P. Tony. And let me read an article to explain how. So this is from Windows Central. Microsoft's filter for Xbox Play Anywhere, or the campaign that has become what they're calling now, everything's an Xbox on the PC app, isn't always, or so this is the filter Xbox Play Anywhere on the PC app. It's not always completely consistent when it comes to listing the features either. I think I started too far low. There are thousands of games on Xbox consoles, but only a portion of them actually support Xbox Play Anywhere. And the vast majority of the games that do support the functionality aren't exactly what you'd call spectacular games. Microsoft's filter for Xbox Play Anywhere on the PC app isn't always completely consistent when it comes to listing the features either. The best way to discover Xbox Play Anywhere games is, perhaps hilariously, via this fan-made spreadsheet that they have linked here in the article. Some games have cross-buy and cross-save, and some only have cross-save and not cross-buy. Most, of course, have neither. Crucially, the biggest and best games of the year organically shun Xbox Play Anywhere for whatever reason. It seems that the only way games end up on Xbox Play Anywhere support is if Microsoft cuts a deal directly with the publisher or ties it into Xbox Game Pass. Capcom supported the feature with the smaller games like Kinitsugami, Monster Hunter Rise, Exoprimal, but avoided it for their heavy hitters like Resident Evil 8 and Monster Hunter Wilds. Civ 6 is on the Xbox Store for PC, but not Civ 7. As far as I can tell, this is the article writer, there seems to be very, very few AAA games that support Xbox Play Anywhere on an organic basis, with the vast majority having some kind of marketing deal with Microsoft. Even high-quality indie games don't seem to see the value of Xbox Play Anywhere for the most part. Metaphor Refantasio, Death Stranding, Ninja Gaiden 2, and Final Fantasy Pixel Remaster Collection recently felt a bit like a breakthrough had been made here. But why didn't Capcom come back from Monster Hunter Wilds after Rise? Why didn't Take-Two come back with Civ 7? These are questions that deserve answering. And if I'm to put my purchase decisions into the Xbox Everywhere ecosystem. So let's talk a little bit about that. That is one side of the two-sided coin to Xbox being everything. Because right now, pretty much the only way that you actually get the everything's an Xbox system that Microsoft is pushing for is if the game is available through Game Pass. Now, I have a game, for example, Cuphead, not available on Game Pass, but was supported with cross-buy and cross-save. What does that mean? It means that when I bought the game on the Xbox, on my Xbox Series X, it also enabled me, or it got me the license, to also play that game on my Windows PC, or vice versa. Most games don't do that. Even the ones that offer cross-save, a lot of times you have to buy, for example, a game like Sea of Thieves. If you buy Sea of Thieves, and maybe you purchased it on PC when it first came out, you would have still had to have bought it on Xbox and on PC Now, cross-save worked. You just log in with your Microsoft account, and everything that you did on one was magically on the other, and it was super seamless and great. But you still had to purchase both versions of that title. This can be a real big issue, I think, for Xbox trying to not be, well, effectively Sega. Sega, Nintendo and Sega back in the day did not get along. Sega actually notoriously, their slogan was that Sega does what Nintendo don't. And Sega didn't do too hot. And now all of their games are basically they're published on everything because Sega is a third-party publisher. That is the future that I see for Xbox if they don't get a real grasp on making this everything is an Xbox campaign reasonable. They're currently, we talked about this 2 weeks ago, they're currently putting their Xbox exclusives on older Xbox exclusives on pretty much everything. We've already seen that happen with Sea of Thieves. We have reason to believe that is happening with Halo. It is happening with Forza. That's coming to PlayStation. Probably going to happen with Gears of War. When it comes to these titles that made the console, you don't have to own an Xbox. Probably by 2027, 2028, you won't have to own an Xbox to play those games. You won't even have to play them through the Xbox ecosystem because, if you're playing these games on Windows, you're still playing them on the Xbox app. You probably won't even have to do that because you could just purchase these games on PlayStation or maybe even the Switch too. Who knows? So there's no exclusivities. There's no big hit games that are exclusive to Xbox to make me want to buy an Xbox or be there. Even the games that are exclusive, like Indiana Jones, is only timed exclusive, and they're giving that to PlayStation within only a few months of its release on Xbox and PC, which is kind of wild. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. The other side of the coin is that there's not really an incentive unless Microsoft cuts a deal with a publisher. There's not really an incentive, especially for these big AAA games where, maybe the publisher doesn't need that deal from Game Pass. Maybe they can stand on their own 2 feet a little bit and be third party. There's not an incentive, one, to put their game on Game Pass, probably, because they'll make more money just selling the game outright. Like for example, Grand Theft Auto 6 would be an absolute group of idiots to put Grand Theft Auto 6 on Game Pass, especially on Game Pass exclusively. That would be incredible for Microsoft, incredible for Xbox, but that would just ensure that they don't make any money on that game or nothing close to what they need to make. Even if they, put it on a Game Pass and then also, still sell it on the other systems, it would just cut their bottom line so much. Okay, well, maybe they don't do that, but the next step is play anywhere. What incentive is there to buy Grand Theft Auto 6 on the Xbox at all? Oh, you play it anywhere, You buy it once, and you can play it on your system. Sorry, I need to take a drink real quick. 1 second, guys. That sicky cough was trying to come back up. Okay, so you buy Grand Theft Auto 6. You play once on your Xbox. You play it on your Xbox. You play it on your PC, maybe. You play it on your smart TV. You play it on your phone. I don't really know how that ecosystem would effectively work outside of Microsoft doing the next most logical thing, which is just to license their operating system. They already do this with Microsoft Windows on multiple different PCs that are manufactured by a bunch of different companies. So partnering with companies like ROG and a ROG Ally or Lenovo to offer a Xbox version of an operating system that can be installed on these handhelds or other devices or an overlay over your mobile device so that you can genuinely play this game anywhere. Well, that's great, and that's what Xbox and Microsoft want to do, but there's not anything to incentivize a company like the company behind Rockstar, like Rockstar, to get on board with that for Grand Theft Auto 6 because they would make more money if they just sold it on everything. And if you bought it on Xbox, that's great. Maybe offer the cross save. That's awesome. But if you want to play it on mobile, or if you want to play it on your PC or whatnot, like however you want to do it, well, then you're going to need to repurchase that game. And there's a kind of a precedent for that because people already do that. We see that happen with Ubisoft's games a lot. The first one that comes to mind is the game Immortals Phoenix Rising. It had this really cool feature where you could upload one save to the cloud and you could pull it down from wherever else you owned that game. And it was completely cross-save across all platforms, whether it was Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, PC, didn't matter. You can pull that save back down. Now, it didn't have cross achievements, which was unfortunate, but you could at least pick up where you left off, and that was pretty cool. Now, maybe that's incentivized because that's just a nice feature that the fans would appreciate. But there's a lot of money to be made selling your game in a bunch of spots, and we're not seeing games adopt this Xbox for the most part. Almost no AAAs. We're not seeing these games adopt this play anywhere mindset. Well, why is that? I think it's because of money. I think that it's just not a good business practice. So I don't see how we're going to do it. Here's where that is the nail in the coffin, or it could be the nail in the coffin, in my humble opinion, for a company like Xbox, who's really, they're not selling any systems. Because why would you? I mean, they could have sold Xboxes, but why would you? You can play everything on everything else. Like, one, they didn't release really any exclusive games anyway to be worth talking about. And the exclusive games that they did release, they're pretty much giving away to their number one competition in Sony. And everybody else is the master race of PC, and they can play it either free or buy it themselves through Steam or through the Microsoft Store on their Windows PCs. So there's no reason to even own the Xbox box anyway. But if there was a reason, well, they're undercutting that even more by not really being able to deliver on the promises they want. If you can't get your third parties on board with you, the only reason to buy a Xbox is for the first parties, which you also don't need an Xbox for because they're giving all their first parties to everybody else. So there's no reason to buy an Xbox. And I really think that we're at the point where I've been talking about this for a while, and a lot of people have been talking about it for a while in the industry. We're at a point right now where Microsoft has they have absolutely got to get this figured out and maybe even backtrack or rethink this whole exclusivity thing, this whole play everywhere thing, if they expect to sell boxes. Now, what does Webby actually think is going to happen? Not that. Webby actually thinks that as we get closer to 2026, we might see one more generation of Xbox that is going to sell poorly. They're going to continue to follow the trajectory of putting their games on everything else and not really getting any of the favors back from third parties, and certainly no favors from companies like Nintendo and Sony, who do understand the power of brand exclusivity, and they do understand the power of intellectual property and holding true to that, and the purchasing force that it creates. They understand all that, and so they're not going to come off of it. That's one of the main things that, especially for Nintendo, who is the underpowered hardware year in, year in, and year in, and year in, and year out. That's the only thing that draws people back to them is their exclusives for the most part and their gimmicks. So what's going to happen? They're either going to figure this out, turn around, and maybe Xbox can stay in the game, or they're not, and we are going to see them become Sega. We're going to see them release probably one more actual real launch, maybe a second one that nobody cares about, but one more Xbox box of some variety. Probably. And then there won't really be a reason to buy it because everything that you would want to play on that box can be played elsewhere. And after that, you might as well just consider them a third party. And Halo and Gears of War will be Sonic, that you can play on the biggest competitor. At the time, Sega's biggest competitor was Nintendo. You can play it on the biggest contender. You know, you can play, say, Sonic on the Nintendo. Well, you're going to be able to play Halo. You're going to be able to play Gears of War and Forza and everything on the biggest competitor, the PlayStation. You're also going to be able to play it on everything else, just like Sega does. That's what I think the future looks like for him. That's it. That's it. And I think that's a little disappointing, to be honest. I think it's a little disappointing. Guys, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Webb Show. I always enjoy doing these things. I know this is a longer form content, but I just like talking about this stuff. And I talked about it a little bit longer than I anticipated talking about it, which is great. We're just at an hour. So, whoa, that is our limit. Guys, I want to thank you all so much. I want to let you know about our new podcast again. That's every Tuesday night live, and then a week after that, we post it to wherever you enjoy your podcast. It's called Tangled Christianity. My co-host, P. Tony, and I are diving into some harder conversations around faith. So if that's interesting, would love to have you there. The Webb Show happens live every Monday night at 6 p.m. Eastern, where we talk about gaming news. Sometimes we have a little bit of a slice of life and bring guests on, and we do what we're doing right now. And I think it's a great time. I have a lot of fun with it, and I love podcasting. So would love to have you here for a live episode sometime. If you'd like to come on out and do that. Guys, we have the Gamer Club, which is my club. That is kind of like a book club, but instead of reading a book each month, we play a game. This month we're playing Unravel. If you're interested in being a part of something like that, hit me up in the Discord. Links are in all the descriptions, and just at me at Webby Pumpkin and be like, "Hey, I wanna learn more about this Gamer Club thing." And ultimately, I hope you guys have the absolute best rest of your week. Thank you so much for listening. Thanks so much for hanging out. I'll catch you guys next week. See ya.